As human beings, each of us experience our lives through a variety of filters. Now, these filters don't distort our view of the real. They inform it. They enrich it. The filters are, in fact, us. Now, one of the big filters that's going to affect your day, how you feel, how you think, how you remember it, okay? Because there's a million things that are going to happen around you, in you, okay, today. But only a few of them, really, or a small handful, relatively, are going to make a dent, are going to be left stuck to you in some way in your mind and your feelings. And the filter that's going to dramatically influence a lot of those micro choices on a conscious and unconscious level, it's a filter called your story. What's the story you're telling yourself? Now, all the stories we tell ourselves are true. They're real. They're real documents and expressions of what we think. They're real descriptions of how we feel. Now, you can walk around with some idea, well, this guy here, he tells himself a story, it's a fantasy, what's really going on, or who he really is. And while theoretically there might be some value in that, I think you're going to find on a humble, practical level, there's not, that dog doesn't hunt. It's not really going to work. It has a presumption. And also, your judgment or interpretation of this other person's, the story they're telling themselves, is seen through the story you're telling yourself. So round and round we can go, okay? So I want to go back to the notion of a more subjective and owning this idea of the story you're telling yourself. It's real. It's important. I wonder what it is. First, I hope you're the star. We have the starring role in your own story because, believe it or not everybody does. A bunch of people see themselves as a supporting actor or even playing a bit part in their own story. And then other people have usurped, have somehow taken over, or maybe they've given up the reins, not so much been taken, but they've given them the power to play that role. And they really only exist in relationship to this other person or this project or other people. They're not at the center of their own lives. And we can only imagine the often, I think, tragic fallout of something like that. So back to your story. What's the story? Do you tell yourself a story? Is your story the story of someone who really has never had anything handed to them? They're a self-made person. Are you someone who made all your own luck? That's a story. Or are you someone who maybe is the opposite? You can never catch a break. No matter how hard this person worked in their life, they never caught a break. Nothing came their way. Are you someone who feels, maybe very grateful? Your story is of a person who received a lot of things and then passed them on to other people, and got a lot of gratitude and joy from that. There's so many different kinds of stories. Do you help other people? Is yours the story of helping other people? Maybe yours the story of someone who has been so hurt and so disappointed so many times that at some point in your life, you took a big step back. You said, fuck it, I'm done. Okay, I'm going to do this, but this other stuff, people have disappointed me too many times. Is that your story? Now, I'm not suggesting for a second, I want to be clear that any of these stories are a bad idea or a good idea or this or that. They're a culmination of a whole bunch of stuff for many years. Okay, it's not about judging them. So often, well, that's a bad story. It's a good story. That's a weak story. His is the story of a superhero. Hers is of a martyr. These labels don't help, because we need to get just back to just trying to witness and get a sense of the story, One of the ways stories really influence too is this notion of self-fulfilling. And I'm sure you're aware of this idea that, so do you act with your story in mind? Okay? Or is it the reverse, that your story inspires you to act in certain ways? So which comes first? How free are we? How reactive or responsive are we to this story that we have, okay? Hence the challenge of changing the story. Now, most of us seek some kind of change. And I believe, and it is an act of faith, it's a thought, I think it's an article of faith to believe in change, okay? I don't know if you can necessarily prove time and again that change happens. Or you might be able to prove it, but it's still a mystery around change. So how do we change our story? That's a whole other subject. But I will tell you this much. It begins with small things, okay? to change a wall, it's a brick by brick thing. You don't, you know, these notions of blowing up a wall and then suddenly another wall appearing, that's a fantasy. It's an expression certainly of our ego and our desperation, all right? So I don't know your story, but I'm mentioning this today because I would like to suggest, and I hope you see value in considering, what is your story? What is your story? It doesn't have to be super detailed, okay? In fact, sometimes we drill into detail in order to avoid the far more daunting simplicity of a story, okay? So what's your story? Whatever your story is, I hope that today, in this moment, your story that you're telling you, that you've created and you continue to refine, okay? First, I hope you're open to shifting the story. I hope you're open to change in your life. That something can happen, you can make a choice, something can come in from the outside, okay? And shift the story, however slightly, because I think living is changing, okay? And I think it's important to stay open, just as a primary idea. But that notion aside, I hope your story is something that brings you peace. I hope your story, whatever it is, brings you joy. I hope your story leaves you feeling empowered with choices and, as Freud would say, an ability to do two primary things: to be able to love and work. And I think both those have a lot of import in them as well. So what's your story? Thanks for watching today's video, and please click the like button and leave a comment. Thanks.